Good morning, grade sixes, and welcome to your Monday lesson of mathematics with WorksheetCloud.com. I hope you guys had a really cool weekend and spent some more quality time with your family. I'm sure you've been up early this morning, had a little bit of exercise, and now are ready to hit the day's academics with full vengeance. Just a reminder about the email address on your screens, grade6@worksheetcloud.com. Please use it to send me any queries. And then also a reminder that on worksheetcloud.com you have access to all previous lessons that we've done, as well as activities and memos. So no excuse for you guys not to stay on top of your academics, and there's an opportunity here for you to really develop some good skills. Okay, so today we start off as usual, and our topic today is percentages, so the third type of fraction, and then we've got our brain benders and challenges to end off with. All right, there's our warm-up activity for today. You need to use your math skills to determine the value of each symbol, and then don't forget the question mark at the end. Right, off you go. Okay guys, well done for working through that. You'll notice the numbers are starting to get a little bit bigger on these challenges. So for the top line, which is where I would have started, I've got 5 flames that need to go into 90. So 90 divided by 5 is going to give me 18. Okay. So 1 flame is 18, therefore 3 flames must be 54, okay, because 18 multiplied by 3 is 54, and if I add up 18 and 54, I'm going to get 90. So if 1 flame is 18, then 2 flames are 36. What do I multiply 36 by to get to 720 is 20. And then my brain power, or lightning bolt out of a cloud, or could like lightning bolt out of a brain, is going to be 0, and that's 720. So I know that my potions are going to be 20. So 20 multiplied by 20 and then multiplied by 0 is going to give you 0. So remember, one of the multiplication properties of 0 is anything multiplied by 0 is equal to 0. And then my flames at the bottom, my 2 flames are going to be 36 again. My potion remains 20. However, that cloud slash brain power is continuing to be 0. Okay, and my final answer then is going to be 0. Okay, so the key there, anything multiplied by 0 is 0. I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of that. Okay, your mental arithmetic questions for today are a division sum at the top, but show me the answer as a mixed fraction. How much less is 10 tons? How much less than 10 tons is 9 tons and 470 kilograms? There's a fraction addition sum for you to do, some multiplication, and don't forget to convert into liters for question number 4, and then a long division sum for question number 5. And I'd encourage you to try and calculate question number 5 through multiplication. Okay, off you go. Okay, cool guys, well done for working through that. So question number 1 we can do through normal division. Okay, so we can say it's short division, so we can use this method. That's not a problem. Okay, so 8 doesn't go into 11. Sorry, 8 doesn't go into 1. It goes into 11 once. Okay, and that leaves me with 3. And then 8 into 37. 8, 16, 24, 32 is 4 times. Okay, and we're left with a remainder of 5. So to write that as a mixed fraction, 14 and 5 over 8. Okay, now I can check that to see if I'm correct. I can say 14 multiplied by 8. Okay, and 14 multiplied by 8 is 112. And then 112 add 5 equals 117. Okay, and as you can see, that's what I started with in the beginning. So you'll probably get tired of me saying it, but it's really important that you always check your work at the end of each calculation. Rather check your work at the end of each calculation than, for example, when you write an assessment, you get to the end of the paper and then you go back and check. And that for me doesn't really work, because by the time you get to the end of an assessment paper, you've kind of forgotten what you did at the beginning. So do the work, answer the question, check it straight away, and then move on. And then you know that that question has been dealt with, and you don't have to worry about coming back to it. Okay, so always check your work immediately after doing it. Okay, so the next question, just wanted to check if you guys were aware how many kilograms there are in a ton. Okay, and you're quite correct in saying that they're 10,000. Sorry, 1,000. So 10 tons is 10,000. So we should have 10,000 kilograms, take away 9,470 kilograms. Okay, and then it just becomes a normal subtraction sum. And if you needed to do it in a column method, then you're going to have to borrow and make this 9. Okay, make that 9, make that 9, and then that becomes 10. Okay, so that's 0, that's 3, that's 5, and you got 530. Okay. Alternatively, you could have just looked at the number 9,470 and recognized that there are 30 to go until 9,500 and then 500 to go until 10,000. Okay, so use the numbers to your advantage. You don't always have to write down a calculation, but again, I would encourage you to check. So if I check this calculation, I'd be adding these two numbers, okay? And you can see that if I add them, I'm going to get 10,000. So I know that my answer must be correct. Okay, then you got an addition of mixed numerals or mixed numbers in fractions. Okay, so I'm just going to write down the improper fraction straight away. 2 times 8 is 16, plus the 5 is 21 over 8. Add 3 over 10, add 11 over 8, which I get by 1 times 8 is 8, plus the 3 is 11. Okay, my lowest common denominator there is going to be 40. All right. 8 goes into 45 times, so 21 times 5 is 105. 10 goes into 44 times, so 3 times 4 is 12. And 8 goes into 45 times, and 11 times 5 is 55. Yeah, then it's just a case of adding up the numerators, which gives me 172 over 40. Okay, and if you needed to write that as an or if you needed to simplify that, I'm just going to write that there for a little bit more space. Okay, 40 goes into 172 4 times. I'm left with 12 over 40. Okay, and then that can be 4. 4 goes into 12 3 times, and into 40 10 times. Okay, so that's your answer if you need to convert it to a mixed numeral. Just remember that all three of these fractions are equivalent. Okay, that just one is just a simpler version of the one before. Okay, so then you needed to do 557 multiplied by 6. Okay, and there are a few different ways which you could have done this. You could have done doubling and halving. So you could have doubled 557 to 1,114. Okay, and multiplied that by 3. Okay, so that should have given you 3,342. Right, so 1,000 times 3 is 300, 100 times 3, so 1,000 times 3 is 3,000. Always good to write it down. As I've just shown you, it's easy to make a mistake. 100 times 3 is 300. 10 times 3 is 30. And 4 times 3 is 12. And if you put them together, you get 3342, 3,342. Okay, that's milliliters. The answer needs to be in liters. Okay, so you just need to be aware of what they ask you to put the answer in, because if you had left it in milliliters, then it's quite possible you would have lost out on a mark. So here, how many milliliters are in liters? That's 1,000. So 1,000 goes into 3,342 three times. So it's 3 liters and 342 milliliters. Okay. And that's pretty much how I would have done it. You could have also, you didn't have to double and halve. You would have got the exact same answer if you had just used the split strategy from the start. That would have also been cool. So 500 times 6 is 3,000. 50 times 6 is 300. And 7 times 6 is 42. And then you put them together. Sorry, that's 3,000. 3,342. Okay, so there, the same answer. I've just manipulated the sum originally through doubling and halving to make it easier to multiply by 3 instead of 6. But like I've shown you now, both methods are correct. You guys must choose which one you want to do. If you prefer the column method, then that is also another option for you. Okay, guys, for number 5 of your mental maths, I've just cleared some space so I can explain it a little bit better. So I asked you to work out 4,426 divided by 56 using multiplication and addition or subtraction, or both. The first thing I've done is I've recognized that 4,426, which is the dividend, and 56, which is the divisor, I've recognized that they're both even numbers. So if I divide both of those numbers by 2, my answer will remain the same. Okay, so 4,426 divided by 2 is 2,213. 56 divided by 2 is 28. And now I'm going to focus on 2,213 divided by 28. Just because the numbers are smaller and I feel a little bit more confident and comfortable working with smaller numbers. Okay, so in the table below, I've drawn up a very rough multiplication table where I'm going to multiply 28 by 100, and that's going to give me 2,800. Okay, now that's too much because I'm only looking for 2,213, but that's my starting point. Okay, now I'm just going to try and subtract until I get close to 2,213. Okay, so I know that 28 times 10 is 280. Okay, and that's not going to get me close enough to 2,213. So I'm going to double that to 560 to get multiply 28 by 20. If I then, I don't need that column anymore. Okay. If I then subtract 2,800 and 560, I'm going to get 2,240. So you can see now that I'm a lot closer. All right. So 28 multiplied by 80 is going to give me 2,240. But I know that 28 multiplied by 1 is 28. Okay. And if I take 28 off 2,240, all right, and I'll write that down for you, I'm going to get 2,212. Okay, so now I know that 28 multiplied by 79 is going to give me 2,212. Okay, so that means I'm 1 away, so my answer must be 79, remainder 1. Okay. Okay, guys, if you're a little bit confused, don't worry about it. We'll keep doing these each day. I'll keep trying to explain them as well as I can. But yeah, play around with the numbers. See if you can go and do this by yourself. Replay what I've done. Listen carefully. And hopefully it's a method that you can use moving forward. that just allows you to make less errors, because ultimately all we're doing is multiplying by powers of 10 and then adding or subtracting. Okay, so well done if you stuck through that. Give it a shot by yourself. Go look at some other long division sums and see if you can work it out using this method. But we'll talk about it each day going forward. Well done if you work through those. We'll keep working on past principles through all our mental mathematics sessions. And guys, please feel free to email me on grade6@worksheetcloud.com if you have any questions to ask. Okay, today's main theme is percentages. So fractions, decimals, and percentages are all linked. A fraction has its equivalent decimal, which has an equivalent percentage. All right, so it's the third type of fraction, if you want to look at it like that. So percentage in real life, I've put some pictures on the screen. You know, you guys might go shopping and there might be a sale at the shop. You need to work out what is the new price of the item you want to purchase. And to be able to do that, it's going to make your life a lot easier to see if you can buy something or if you can't. All right, so the word percent actually means parts per 100. So percentage is out of 100. Okay, and 5% would therefore mean 5 out of 100. Okay, so that is why I'm saying percentage is a type of fraction, because it can be converted to a fraction. 5% is 5 over 100, and we know that 5 over 100 is 0.05. Okay, so just thinking about the above comments, I just want to have a look and see, perhaps you guys already know how to work out percentages of an amount. I'm going to show you two different ways to work them out, but the first thing I'd like you to do is to go ahead and try and work out 5% of 200, 20% of 200, 10% of 200, and 22% of 200. So you'll notice that it's always out of 200, and it's done that for a reason. Okay, so you can either convert the percentage to a fraction and then work out the fraction of the amount, but I'm interested to see if you know another method. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to complete A, B, C, D, and then when we come back, we'll work through them together. Okay, off you go. Okay, guys, well done for working those out. So I'm first going to convert the percentage to a fraction. So 5% we know is 5 over 100. Okay, of we know is multiplied, and we know 200 can be written as 200 over 1. Okay. Now it's a case of multiplying the numerators. 5 times 200 is 1,000, divided by 100, and that is equal to 10. Okay, we could have also simplified 5 over 100 and said 1 over 20 times 200 over 1. Okay, it would have left us with 1 times 200 is 200 over 20, and it's still equal to 10. Okay. So that would be the answer if you converted it into a fraction. All right. What you can also do is you can find out what is 10% of 200. Okay. So when I want to find out 10% of a number, I simply divide by 10. Okay, so 200 divided by 10. Why? Because 10% is 10 over 100, which equals 1 over 10. And we know we divide by the denominator, and the denominator is 10. So 10% of 200, which is 200 divided by 10, is equal to 20. Okay, so therefore 5% must be half of that, and we've already worked that out to be 10. Okay, so there are two options there for you to work out. The beauty here is that now that I know what 5% is, I know what 10% is because I can just double. I know what 20% is. I can work out like any percentage just because I know what 10% is. So if 5% is of 200 is 10, 10% must be 20. Okay, so I'm going to do C first. All right. 20% must be double 10%, so 14. And now we get to 22%. Okay, so I know what 20% is because I worked it out in B. Okay, 20% was 40. All right, so I now need to work out what 1% is. Again, you've got a couple options here. If I know that 10% is equal to 20, then 1% must be equal to 2. Okay. I can also work out 1% of 200 in a fraction form. We know of is multiply. Okay, and that ends up being 200 over 100, which we know is 2. Okay. If I know 1% now, I know 2%, so 2% is going to be 4. So I need to add that 2% to the 20%, and that's going to give me 44. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight here that to work out the percentage of an amount, you can first work out 10%, and then you can, once you worked out 10%, you can halve it to 5%, you can divide by 10 to 1%, you can double it to get to 20%, you can triple it to get to 30%, etc., etc. Okay, so it's really easy to work out most percentages by just working out 10% first. But it's also important for you to understand how to work it out using a fraction form. Okay, so just a quick question for you guys. How do I convert a fraction to a percentage? Okay, if we go back to the presentation, okay, so just before we get into working out percentages of amounts in a little bit more detail, I want to go back to the Google Jamboard and just go through how do we get a percentage from a fraction. So for example, if I've got 2/5 and I wanted to work that out as a percentage is always out of 100, which we've already discussed. So my denominator needs to be 100. So how do I convert 5 into 100? I multiply by 20. And we know that whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. Now I've got 40 out of 100, which equals 40%. Okay? But what happens if it's not that easy? What happens if you've got a fraction that doesn't convert to 100? If the denominator you can't convert to the 100. Okay, so here I'm going to use an example of 1/8. Okay, now I can't multiply 8 by anything to get exactly 100. Okay, without using a decimal, but I want to avoid using decimals because they complicate things. So here I can just multiply by 100 over 1. Now you can either say 101, the numerators multiplied together, over the denominators multiplied together. I can then simplify that to 50 over 4, which is the same as 25 over 2. And we know that 25 divided by 2 is 12,5, and that would be the percentage. Okay, so if you get a fraction that you can't convert the denominator to 100, then simply multiply by 100 over 1 and follow the same process as you would do when multiplying fractions. Okay, so there are two options there for you to think about. Okay, so back to the presentation. When we use fractions, or we can use fractions to help us calculate percentages, okay, as we've already discussed. So, for example, 25% of 80, we know that 25% can be written as 25 over 100, and we can simplify that to 1/4. So now I just need to say what is 1/4 of 80, which we know is 80 divided by 4, which is 20. Alternatively, I could have said, what is 10% of 80? 10% of 80 is 8. So therefore, 20% of 80 is 16. If 10% of 80 is 8, 5% must be half of that, so 4. Then if you add the 16 and the 4 together, you also get 20. So I just wanted to highlight those two things for you again, and I'll explain it for you. We said 25% of 80. Okay, so first we said 25% was a quarter, because 25 over 100 is 25%, because we know percentage is out of 100. That equals a quarter, and now it's just a quarter of is multiplied. 80 can be written as 80 over 1, and that's 80 divided by 4, and that gives you your 20. Okay, so that was option number 1. And then the other option I spoke about earlier was to first work out what's 10%, and we know that 10% we just divide by 10, so 80 divided by 10 is equal to 8. I can work out 20% because I just have to double it. Okay, then if 10% is 8, 5% must be equal to 4. Okay, so if I add 20%, which is 16, and 5%, which is 4, I also get my answer of 20. Okay, so they're the two options for you to work through again. Okay, cool. The examples up above, I'd like you to work through by yourself. There are just 3 there. Follow the process they've done for you. So they've converted the percentage to a fraction. I will work through both methods for you, so that depending on which one you choose, I'll give you answers for both. But go ahead and work those out, guys. Okay, cool. So let's have a look at these percentages. We know that 25% is a quarter. Okay, so 120 divided by 4 is going to be 30. All right, so that answers 30. Okay. 50% of 250, we know that 50% is a half. So half of 250 is 125. So 250 divided by 2 is also 125. And then 20% of 50, a fifth of 50, so 50 divided by 5 is 10. So 1/5 of 50 is 10. Okay, so if you can convert and recognize percentages and fractions, then very good. If you struggle to do that, then I'm just going to do A over here. If I say 10% of 120 is 12, okay, 20% must equal 24. If I know 10% is 12, then 5% must equal, let's put them all in the same line, must equal 6. And then I've just got 20% and 5%, and there I've got 24 plus 6 is equal to 30. All right. I'll do B for you. So B, if I say 10% of 250 equals 25, all right, 50% will be 25 multiplied by 5, and 20 times 5 is 100, 5 times 5 is 25, and if I add them together, there's my 125. Okay, so this, I'm just showing you this so that if you're not comfortable, if you don't enjoy working with fractions, this is another option for you. And question C, let's chuck in another color there. 10% of 50 is equal to 5, so therefore 20% must be double 5, which equals 10. And there you have it. So guys, it's there for you to choose. Yeah, I prefer the option that's on the screen for you now, but it is very good for you to understand being able to convert between percentages and fractions. Right, so real life examples for you to work through. You can choose whichever method you want. I'm just going to go through one method for you. Off you go and give these ones a good shot. Okay, guys, well done for working those out. So I'm just going to talk you through these. So 20% of 300, if I can work out 10% of 300, which is 300 divided by 10 is 30, then 20% will be double 30, so that's going to be 60. Okay. For 35% of 280, if I can work out 10% is 28. 30% must be 28 multiplied by 3. Okay, so 20 times 3 is 60, 8 times 3 is 24, so that's going to give me 84. And then 5% must equal 14, and then it's just adding 30% and 5%. Okay, and that's going to give you 98. All right. For C, 50% of 800, I can work out 10% is 80. If 10% is 80, 5% is 40. So I put them together, I get 80 and 40 is 120. For D, 6% of 70 kilometers. Okay, so again, I can say 10% is equal to 7 kilometers. All right, so 1% is going to be equal to 0.7 kilometers, which is the same as 700 meters. Okay, and then 6% must be 700 meters times by 6, which is 4,200 meters or 4.2 kilometers. Okay. There, it's important for you to know about your conversions. Now, the other way to do that, okay, would have been to convert the kilometers into meters right at the beginning. All right, and if we do that, we would have to say 10% of 70,000 meters. 10% of 70,000 meters is 7,000 meters. Okay. Then 1% is going to be 700 meters, and then you can work out the 6% by multiplying 700 by 6, and you still get to the same amount. Okay, for E, 25% of 150. So if you recognize 25% is a quarter, then great. Okay, so you're looking for a quarter of 50, so 150 divided by 4. Okay, alternatively, 10% of 150 is equal to 15. So 20% must be equal to 30, and 5% must be equal to half of the 10%, which is 7.5. And if we add them together, we get 37.5 milliliters. Okay, so a quarter of 150 milliliters is 37.5. Now I can check that, because if 1/4 is 37.5, to work out 100%, I just need to multiply 37.5 by 4, and if I do that, I get to 150. Okay, so there's a nice little checking strategy for you to use in doing that. All right. 9% of 700 Rand. Okay, if I work out 10% of 700 Rand, I'm going to get 70 Rand. So 1% must be 7 Rand. Okay, so I've just divided by 10 to get to 1%. All right, and if I know 1%, then 9% must be 7 times 9, which is 63 Rand. Okay, I think that's a little bit easier than going 9 out of 100 times 700 over 1 and then multiplying across like that. But if you wanted to do that way, I'll show it to you quickly. Sorry, I'm aware that the lesson is starting to get a bit long, but it's important for you guys to understand this concept. So if I used fractions, I would have done that. Okay, 9 times 700, 9 times 7, 63, and the 2 zeros. Then put it over 100, and we know that that's going to be equal to 63, because these zeros simply cancel each other out on division. Okay? Okay, cool. Then for G, 15% of 400. So I'm just going to talk you through these ones. 10% of 400 is 40. So therefore 5% must be 20. So if I put them together, 40 and 20, I get 60. 18% of 300, 10% is 30. 1% will equal 3. Okay. So 9% will equal 3 times 9 is 27. So 18% will be double the 27, and that equals 54. Okay. I suppose you could have also worked out 20% of 300. And let's just have a look at that quickly. If I said 20% of 300, we know that's going to be 10% is 30, so 20% is 60. Okay, so to get to 18%, if I know that 1% is equal to 3, 2% is equal to 6, so if I subtract 2%, so if I subtract that 6, which is the 2% that comes off 20 to get to 18, then I get the exact same answer of 54. Okay, and then your last question for R, which I'll just talk you through, 90% of 1,000, well 10% of 1,000 is 100, so 90% must be 100 times 9, and that's going to give me 900. Okay, well done for sticking with it, guys. I know it's been a bit long, but yeah, important that you guys understand this. Okay, there's your brain bender for today. We're almost there. This is your last activity, and the challenge, the 24 challenge, you know that you guys do by yourselves at home. So go ahead and work this one out. Guys, well done working through that brain bender. I'm hoping that you continue to challenge someone at home. All right, so I'm just going to fill in what I know. Okay. Okay, so the first thing I'm looking at is 10 multiplied by 8 is 80. Okay, then I need to look at how did I get, I'm going to look at what did I multiply by 8 to get to this 72. All right, and it's 9 times 8 is 72. Okay, for there. All right, then 9 multiplied by what is 36, and that's 9 multiplied by 4. Okay, and now I'm getting a bit closer. I can fill things in. 10 multiplied by 4 is 40. It should be 11 multiplied by 4 gives me this 44. I can then say this 11 times this 8 gives me this 88. Okay, what did I multiply this 10 by to get this 110? And that's going to be 11. And then 9 times 11 is 99. And 11 times 11, which is 11 squared, is 121. Okay, cool guys, well done for working through that and for sticking with it today. There is your 24 challenge. Remember to use all 4 numbers on each card and any of the operations to get to 24. You can use all addition, all subtraction. You can use a combination of operations, but you've got to use all 4 numbers only once to get the answer of 24. Okay, good luck with that. And again, challenge someone at home. And then guys, thanks very much for watching. A long one today, but maybe a good way to start the week. Keep on top of your academics. Be a really cool person at home. Help out with stuff around the house. And don't forget to email me on grade 6 at WorksheetCloud should you have any questions about anything we've spoken about or anything we haven't spoken about. Guys, all the best and catch you tomorrow. Cheers.